Chris Mackowski for Emerging Civil War, commemorating the 155th anniversary of the Battle of Spotsylvania Court House this week. And today, on May 19th, we are at Harris Farm. I say we because I have with me my battlefield associate, junior partner, Maxwell James. Maxwell, can you say hi?
Hi.
So when we were out here at Harris Farm 155 years ago today, Robert E. Lee decided he would bring the fight to Ulysses S. Grant. Grant had been trying to get Lee dislodged from his position, had been unable to, and so was going to make the choice to swing past Lee's right flank and again move south just as he did out of the wilderness. But Robert E. Lee is going to bring the fight to Grant instead. He's going to take his entire Second Corps down to only 6,000 men at this point. And I want you to think about that. When this campaign opened up, Grant's thinking about a war of attrition. And, you know, when the Second Corps made its famous flank march at Chancellorsville a year earlier, it had 28,000 men. Now making this march around the federal flank just a little over a year later, they're down to 6,000 from 28,000. Now, of course, there are a lot of things, reorganization of the Army and things that play into that as well. But think about that war of attrition and the impact it's having. The vaunted Second Corps down to only 6,000 men under Richard Ewell. About 4 o'clock, they get to this ground. They run into some Union soldiers a little to the west of here, drive them back, and that alerts Grant that he's got a problem in his rear. What Ewell is trying to do is push toward the Fredericksburg Road, which is now going to be that way, about a half a mile, and sever Grant's supply lines. Now, in order to do that, though, of course, he's got to get past the federal troops that are stationed here. Those Federals are going to put up enough of a fight that it's going to allow more reinforcements to get to the area. The Federals do break through, or the Confederates do break through at Fredericksburg Road, but then it's suddenly like Christmas time as the Confederates get into the Federal wagon trains. They get all these supplies that they've been denied. That's going to allow Federal reinforcements to get here and begin pushing back. Many of those reinforcements are heavy artillery units that have been in the defenses of Washington. Now, a heavy artillery unit sounds like an artillery unit. They are, because they're trained to man these big guns in the fortifications. But they're also trained as an infantry unit to support their own guns. As a result, these units are also big. The 1st Maine Heavies, for instance, one of the units here, they're going to have 1,800 men. And they're all literally coming to the battlefield for the first time. The 1st Massachusetts Heavies, which dedicated a monument here in 1901, they're here. That's their baptism of fire as well. At first, Confederates underestimated these green troops. One officer said that he didn't think there'd be 10 of those greenies left after 10 minutes. But in fact, they actually stood there and just took it. Not everything was in perfect order. One Union officer said that they probably took double the casualties than they would have had the heavy artillery officers seen more service. And these men, as they're flooding out here to counteract this Confederate attack, they just stand in this open field as if they're in dress parade and just start, is right. And they start exchanging fire. And they just stand in this open field and take it. Some Confederates admit it's one of the bravest things they've ever seen during the war. The Confederates, grizzled veterans that they are, hunker down behind any bit of defensive works that they can, which is good because the sheer number of Federal reinforcements that flood into this area soon has them in over their heads. And it's all that Richard Ewell can do to hold on until darkness. So over the course of 4 hours worth of fighting, the Federals are going to hold the ground, and darkness is going to allow Ewell to slip away. But the casualties left behind here are pretty stunning. A total of about 2,500 casualties. And some of these heavy artillery units take up to 25% casualties, such as the 1st Massachusetts. You've got the 2nd New York, you've got the 6th, the 7th New York, you've got the 1st Maine. So you've got a bunch of these heavy artillery units who have their baptism of fire here. Once the Confederates withdraw back to their old position, Grant's going to wait to see if there are any more Confederate shenanigans, and there's not going to be. Lee has really kind of spent himself, and so that's going to then give Grant the okay in his mind to pull away from Spotsylvania, try to draw Lee out of these entrenchments, and he's going to start moving down toward Bowling Green and the North Anna River. We'll follow those movements later this week. This ground is preserved by the Central Virginia Battlefields Trust. It is within a low-density housing development, so there's not much of Harris Farm left except for just these few 4 acres. It is a beautiful neighborhood. As you come down here from the little parking area, you'll come down this cedar line stretch. It used to be part of the old driveway to get down in here. And you can see this great monument, one of the few here at Spotsylvania, and an oft overlooked one because it is out of the way. But I hope if you ever visit the Spotsylvania battlefield, you take the time to come out to Harris Farm. It's well marked thanks to the Civil War trails. They've got some signs that'll get you out here, and it's a beautiful, peaceful little spot. You can remember this oft overlooked action. I'm Chris Mackowski. Glad to have you with us here on the 155th anniversary of the Battle of Spotsylvania Court House, an emerging Civil War.